Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into fascinating ideas and uh, pull out the most surprising, really game-changing insights for you. Today, we're embarking on a journey that starts with something wonderfully simple, just a jar of water and a beam of sunlight, and it takes us straight to the fundamental nature of time, color, and maybe even reality itself. We actually received this incredible observation from you recently about seeing a rainbow projected by a glass jar of water right there in front of you, even when the sun was, well, facing you. It seems like a tiny detail, maybe, but it's precisely these kinds of unexpected things that, when you really dig into them, open up whole universes of understanding. So, our mission today is to explore how geometry and relationship aren't just abstract concepts. They might be the actual scaffolding for everything we perceive and experience, including, yeah, time and color.
It's really striking, isn't it, how that observation, which seems counterintuitive at first glance, it immediately opens up a much deeper conversation. It forces us to look again at how structure and relationship and even our own perception are tangled together in ways we usually just, ignore.
Okay, let's really get into this initial observation then. You described seeing this distinct rainbow arc, like a clear spectrum of colors, right on the ground in front of you. And this was projected by sunlight going through a glass jar of water, even though the sun was shining at you. Now, most of us learn, to see a rainbow, the sun has to be behind you. So what gives?
Right, you've hit on the key difference there. What you saw absolutely happens. It's real. But it's not a contradiction to how we usually think about those big sky rainbows.
Okay.
The mechanism is different. See, a primary rainbow, the big one in the sky, that needs sunlight to go into water droplets, bounce off the inside-back surface.
Critical reflection, right?
Yeah, exactly. Internal reflection, and then it bends again coming out. That whole process requires the sun to be behind you to get the right viewing angle.
Makes sense.
But your jar, that's basically just acting like a simple prism.
Ah, okay.
When sunlight, which is, white light containing all the colors, hits the curved glass in the water, it just bends, refracts, and it spreads out. Dispersion into that spectrum.
So it doesn't need the internal reflection step.
Nope. It can happen whether the sun's in front, beside, wherever, as long as the light hits that boundary, that refractive edge. Think about color shimmering on a CD or a soap bubble or an oil slick.
Yeah.
It's that same basic physics, simple refraction and dispersion, just a different setup.
Okay, so the jar isn't breaking the rules, it's just showing a different rule or a different aspect of them. And here's where you took it somewhere really interesting. You distilled this down to a principle. All structure is revealed through relationship. How does seeing this particular rainbow lead to such a, well, profound thought about everything?
Well, that's the conceptual leap, isn't it? The jar rainbow is like a perfect little model for it. The colors weren't just floating in the sunlight, separate from everything else, and they weren't hiding in the jar either.
Right.
They only became visible when the sunlight entered into a specific relationship with the geometry of the jar and the water.
Okay, the interaction.
The interaction, exactly. The light's own nature, plus the shape of the jar, created the conditions for that pattern, that structure of color, to be revealed. If you take away that relationship, no jar, or no light hitting it that way,
Yeah.
you don't get the rainbow. So it suggests that what we perceive isn't just about objects in isolation, but about how things, well, relate to each other, the interplay.
Okay, building on that idea then, that structure comes from relationship. You took it even further, to time itself, which is, let's face it, a big mystery. You propose that geometry and relationships are maybe the prerequisites for time, maybe even where time comes from. What does that actually mean? It sounds huge.
It is a pretty big shift in thinking, yeah. Instead of seeing time as this, like, independent river flowing along.
Yeah, the arrow of time.
Right. In this view, time is emergent. It's not fundamental in itself. It arises from change. Specifically, change in how things relate to each other within some kind of geometric space or field.
Okay, emergent. Like how wetness emerges from water molecules, but isn't in a single molecule.
That's a great analogy, yeah. Think about our best physics. Relativity, for instance. Time isn't separate from space, it's woven into space-time. And how time flows, its rate, is affected by gravity, by mass, which is all about the geometry, the curvature of space-time.
Right, time slows down near black holes and stuff.
Exactly. That's geometry dictating the relational flow of time. And then you look at quantum mechanics. Time, as we normally think of it like a sequence, before and after, it really only becomes clear when there's a measurement and interaction.
The observer effect. Kind of. Sort of related, yes. Before you measure, say, an electron's position, it's in this fuzzy state of potential. a kind of timeless superposition. It's only when you introduce a relationship, like bouncing a photon off it, with a detector that its state settles down. And then you have a definite before the measurement and after the measurement.
Okay.
Without that relational change, that interaction, the concept of time passing for that specific quantum state doesn't really apply in the same way. So the takeaway is no relationships, no change, ultimately no way to even measure or perceive time.
Wow. Okay, that really does twist how you think about now.
Mm.
It means now isn't just some abstract point moving along a line. It's tied to actual stuff happening, interactions,
Yeah.
distinctions.
Precisely. Geometry provides the stage, the layout for things to be distinct and to change relative to each other. Time only becomes measurable or even meaningful when one thing happens in relation to another, or when something moves across a distance, which is geometry, or when one part of a system changes compared to another part.
It's all relationship and geometry in action. Yes. If you had absolutely no shape, no distance, no angles, no way to distinguish anything from anything else, you wouldn't have a before and after. You just have this one, undivided, unchanging. Well, now, if you could even call it that. And thinking about time as this change in relational state helps make sense of other things too, like memory and cause and effect.
How so?
Well, if time is sequence unfolding through geometry, then memory could be seen as, like, the stored pattern, the geometric trace of a past relational state.
Okay, like an imprint.
Sort of.
Right.
And causality. That's the directed flow. One relational change leading to the next predictable change, following the rules of that geometric system.
And prediction is just mapping that forward.
Exactly. Mapping out expected future relational changes based on the geometry and patterns we've observed. So you see, geometry and relationship aren't just like connected to time. They're the very foundation that makes time make sense, that makes it usable.
So putting it together, it's not that time passes and then things age. It's more like things change their relationships, their structure, within this geometric context. And that process, that unfolding, is what we perceive and measure as time passing. Time is the consequence, not the cause.
You've nailed it, that
Yeah.
core idea. Geometry plus relationship, the seedbed of time. Time kicks in the moment you get differentiation, the moment one thing becomes distinct from another. It flows only where there's potential for connection and transformation to evolve. And where does time stop, effectively? Where nothing can change in relation to anything else. Like perhaps inside a black hole singularity, theoretically. It's a perspective that feels philosophically satisfying, but it also lines up surprisingly well with the maths in physics, from the huge scale to the tiny scale.
Okay, this is deep. Let's take it another step. You connected all this relationship, geometry, time back to our starting point. Color. With another really intriguing statement. Colors are a visible spectrum of geometry unfolding itself into relationship in time, through which we perceive as energy. Unpack that one for us. That's a lot in one sentence.
It is dense, yeah. But it ties everything together. Color isn't just a wavelength number on a chart. It's the experience we have. And that experience, according to this view, is geometry unfolding through relationship over time. Felt as energy. Let's break it down.
Please do.
Okay, so light, as we said, has a geometric form, a wave. It has a length, an amplitude, a shape. That's the geometry.
Right.
As it travels, it oscillates, it repeats that shape. That's its frequency. Then that wave hits something, your eye, a leaf, the jar. It enters into a relationship with that boundary.
Okay.
The process of that waves moving, interacting, maybe being absorbed or reflected by that boundary, that takes time. It's a change occurring. And finally, color is how our perceptual system, our consciousness, registers that entire dynamic event. It's our interpretation of that specific geometry unfolding through that specific relationship over that moment of time. We perceive it as a quality, as red or blue, which corresponds to a type of energy interaction.
So color isn't static, it's an active event, a resonance.
Exactly. It's a relational resonance. The light wave's geometry interacts with the geometry of your eye's receptors, creating a signal which your brain interprets as, say, green. It's like color is what geometry feels like when it gets into a relationship and becomes, well, aware through a system like ours.
That really helps explain why different colors feel so different, doesn't it? Like red feels warm, maybe urgent. Blue feels calm, cool.
Precisely. It's not arbitrary. Red light has a longer wavelength, a slower frequency. Its geometric form resonates differently in our system than, say, violet light.
Which is short, high frequency, intense.
Right. Violet feels almost piercing sometimes. Green is in the middle, often associated with balance, harmony. It's like we're literally feeling the shape of that energy through how it relates to us over time.
We're experiencing the qualitative geometry.
You got it. We experience the qualitative geometry of energy through relational time, and this link between color, geometry, perception. It's powerful evidence for this whole relational view. It shows structure isn't just static stuff. It becomes experienced through relationship. It suggests time isn't just tick-tock linear. It's the rhythm of how relationships change. And it shows energy isn't some substance. It's the unfolding process itself, shaped by form and awareness. So yeah, color. Geometry and motion perceived as meaning through time. It's maybe the clearest window we have into this idea that reality is fundamentally made of relational unfolding.
Okay, and then you took this framework to what feels like its ultimate conclusion, the deepest layer. You stated, everything that can happen or be already is happening. What we experience is just a relational cross-section of the whole. That one really makes you stop and think. What does that imply?
It implies that maybe reality, at its most fundamental level, isn't sequential in the way we experience it. It's more simultaneous.
Simultaneous? How?
Imagine not a movie film strip being projected frame by frame, but the entire film existing all at once, every frame, every possibility.
Okay.
So maybe the universe is like that,
Right.
a vast field containing all possible states, all frequencies, all geometric configurations, all potential moments, past, present, future, coexisting as potential geometry, like standing waves in an infinite ocean.
Yeah.
Everything is already there, vibrating.
So the universe isn't being written, it is written. Or it just is.
It just is. A field of all possibilities. And what we call life, our experience, is like a moving spotlight or a lens traveling through that field.
A slice. You called it a slice.
A slice, exactly. A relational cross-section. Our consciousness, our particular structure at any given moment, interacts with that total field in a specific way. It selects or resonates with one particular configuration, one slice of that total reality.
We're not creating reality moment by moment.
In this view, no. Not creating it from scratch. We're selecting it, or maybe tuning into it. Our consciousness acts like a filter or a receiver. It tunes to one slice of geometry, one range of frequencies, one set of relationships.
And that slice is what we experience as now.
That's now. And the sequence of these slices, as our point of perception moves or tunes through the possibilities, that's what we experience as the flow of time.
And the pattern of what happens in those slices is a life.
Yes, the pattern of interactions and experiences within that sequence of slices. Color helps here again. Think about the electromagnetic spectrum. All the colors, all the frequencies, radio waves, X-rays, they're all out there simultaneously. You don't create the frequency for red light when you see something red. Your eye and brain are simply tuned to receive that specific slice of the spectrum. That frequency was already there.
You just align with it.
You aligned with it, and it became your experience. So maybe all of perception is a kind of tuning. All of consciousness is the act of taking a slice. And all of reality, in its totality, is already vibrating.
That really changes things. How you think about your place in it all, your agency.
It does. If we zoom out to the biggest picture, it suggests the universe is this, like boundless, living ocean of coherent relational potential, everything possible, already inherent in the field.
In my life, our lives.
Your life is a unique journey through that ocean. A specific path, sampling one relational slice after another. A path where geometry becomes energy, and energy resonates as meaning through your awareness. You're not building the universe. You're participating in its ongoing revelation, moment by moment, slice by slice, through the unique lens of who you are.
An active participation in revealing what already is.
Exactly. An engagement with this infinite field of potential.
Wow. Okay. From a simple jar of water, we've gone pretty far out. We've taken this really extraordinary deep dive, tracing connections between geometry, relationship, time itself, color, and the fabric of reality.
It does seem to circle back to that core idea, doesn't it? Perception is the act of slicing the whole field of becoming.
It really does. And that leaves us and leaves you with a pretty mind-bending thought to chew on. If everything that can happen or be already is happening, and your life is this unique journey through slices of that infinite potential, what does that mean for how you choose to tune your perception? What slices do you focus on? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope it sparks some new connections, some curiosity for you.